remove your Burger King bag.
No, I would never go to Burger King.
Okay, so since I keep killing trees, I went ahead and printed this only to find that it's probably too small for me. Anyway, and pass those around. Just wanted to go over who's with our group and what you shared with us. So for those of you who are new, we have Jackson, who is an A&ES Greek New Testament major from North Carolina. And he explained to us what synesthesia is again.
So it's this intertangling of your
I'm in class right now. Can I call back when I get out? Okay, bye. Dr. Pink.
so your optic nerves and your auditory nerves are a little intertwined, and so like songs and sounds have colors and shapes, and I thought everyone was like that until I told one of my friends in high school I really like the sound or the color of that song. He's like, "What the heck are you talking about?" That's what it was, that everyone isn't like that.
You know, it's interesting because my son with autism, he doesn't have synesthesia, but he, when he was little, he's just amazing at math. I mean, he can do these complex math things. And he goes, yeah, because that formula, that equation is blue. So it's, other people have that. Okay. Then Derek is also Greek New Testament from St. George, served a mission in Mexico. And this is how you're going to remember him. He submitted an article to Digital Ensign, so it's an article.
Just digital.
But it's not printed. What was the article about?
It was about scrupulosity.
Oh,
about
really?
OCD, yeah.
So there was Listen, Learn, Love. I don't know if you know that podcast,
Mhm.
but he interviewed a son of one of my wife's old boyfriends, Noah Kelch, who did a whole episode of scrupulosity.
Oh, cool.
For those of you who don't know what scrupulosity is, it is effectively being obsessive-compulsive disorder in regard to things of religion, right?
Yeah, worthiness mostly.
Yeah. So.
It's a fun time.
And your girls are scary.
I didn't know that this was
Okay,
gonna
so
come to everyone,
for you sisters
so.
traveling with, I know these two boys are scared, and there you have it. Katie Bankhead is sick today, so I told her it was fine that she, oops, you don't want to listen to Byzantine or other Christian music, do we?
I don't know.
Gregorian chant?
Good. Oh, it's really cool. I'm sorry I don't have the main thing here, otherwise I'd let you listen to it while we're waiting for Stephen to get here. But anyway, Katie had 3 concussions last year. I guess that's how.
rough.
You're friends with her, Derek. Do you know anything about that? Is it from dancing? She's a ballroom dancer.
I think a couple of them are. I think one of them was from a car crash, honestly.
Oh, okay.
That sounds right. I think I
Yeah.
remember
She's
telling us
getting
about
married in
that.
October, so you boys that are scared of girls, stay scared of her. Okay. Paul is one of our 2 Hebrew Bibles. I think Stina's the other one, right? And you're from Rancho Cucamonga? How do you say that?
Oh, that's
Oh,
where
that's
I'm
your
on my
mission. Where are you
yeah.
from?
Price, Utah.
When did you get back from Rancho Cucamonga?
Not this January, but the year before.
Do you know Matthew Johnson?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, he's from my home ward.
Okay.
Great guy.
Yeah, he's funny.
Okay, so you're from Price. I was gonna say, I was gonna say, oh, you're from California. No wonder you like to read books by the pool. But that has nothing to do with anything. So you play the organ, do you?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, my best friend's an organist, so I didn't used to like the organ very much until I started hanging out with Andy. So anyway, good. Okay, now we are looking at Addie is not here. She also was sick today. But just so you know a little bit about her, for those of you who remember your picture, she's blonde. She's a history major. She didn't have a hometown because she lived all over. She must speak Spanish because she served a mission in Argentina. So this is my OCD, Derek. I'm not suffering from scrupulosity, but I have Argentina.
It's
I have
Argentina.
a problem with things being precise on PowerPoints. She lived in England. That's interesting. And she touched her tongue between us. The reason I did this when we went in the group in 2017 is we had 25 people that went on the trip. And only 7 were A&ES majors, so it's just really hard to kind of get to know each other. So that's how I have to learn people by something about them. Okay, so Kaylee Cox is here at the end. She's from Michigan, right, Grand Rapids. Tomorrow's primary will make our decision for us, whether it's Bernie or Joe. You have a preference? Joe. I mean, maybe you want Donald, but anyway, it's all good. You have everything that you want. A self-reliance facilitator. Wow.
Yeah.
Were you successful in making them self-reliant?
Oh, definitely.
Wow, so you like to wakeboard.
Mm-hmm.
Fun stuff.
It is.
Let's see.
Do you wake surf
You're
or, like-
You're Chloe, right?
I go to
Okay.
cable park.
Sorry, I just
Okay.
jumped to your last name. You're not Dean. And did you send me some information on? I forgot to write it down.
I did, but it was just like earlier.
Yeah.
today.
So you're sophomore, weren't you?
Yeah.
And remind me what you're studying. Design.
Pre-business.
Pre-business. Okay. And you're from where?
Springville, Utah.
I think I did it on one computer and forgot to save the dropbacks on this. Did you serve a mission or anything?
No, I just
It was
basically.
white young women's stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was young women's like presidency going up, and then when I was an adult, they had me be like, I've been like a camp person. So.
Camp person. So if we get stuck in Greece because of coronavirus, you can, those of you who cook and those of you who can't, we'll just kind of go out in the mountains. Say something interesting about yourself so that I can remember you.
I love ceramics.
My son-in-law is in a ceramics class right now. Yeah, he's enjoying it. I'm like, pick a major, find a career, support my daughter. He's a great guy though, compared to the dumpster fires that were her previous boyfriends. My wife often goes, sorry, if you're going to travel with me for 3 weeks, you're going to learn far more about my family and personal life than you want to know.
No, I just love that this is all recorded.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, my wife says, well, Luke's a great guy. He's a great guy. He's really good to Rachel. Some of her boyfriends just were dumpster fires.
I love Luke.
Do you know Luke?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
you
was
told
there
us that.
at the reception.
Well, that's right. That was a reception, wasn't it?
I got this video of you dancing, actually.
Oh, Arab dancing?
Yeah,
Yeah,
It
so
won't
that
go
was an
anywhere.
$11,000 reception. It wasn't a cultural hall kind of thing. Yeah, it was a Middle Eastern theme. Anyway, it was a good reception. So Rachel's previous boyfriends had any number of problems, serious like emotionally abusive, or orientation issues, or addictions of various kinds. And so Lane said, they made you really open to Luke because who cared that he just was home from his mission and hadn't picked a major yet? He's a good guy who loves our daughter and is faithful in the church. Anyway, okay. TJ, I remember as Paul's friend, but the other way that we can remember him is he's the fellow who is doing design, and I didn't notice this until I was typing it in. When you say you do stained glass stuff, are you with that outfit that does the stained glass windows for temples and things?
Yeah, so that's like my family business.
That is your family
So,
business.
Yeah.
Aren't you going to do something for the Joseph Smith building here, maybe?
We have been talking about it, and it just has to be like
Approved. Yeah, because
and
I've
so-
seen the mock-ups for it. It's pretty awesome. Nothing against the prophet Joseph since I'm being taped, but Jesus is my thing.
Yeah.
And what they want to do, you know, the windows where they now have that weird thing with Joseph Smith with lightsabers coming out of him, lightening the world.
Yeah.
They're going to replace the stained glass window like Jesus coming and like second coming, isn't it?
So that's like kind of what we were going for. That first idea was rejected by the board,
Oh,
and then
I love that idea.
We
Get a
presented
plug
something
for it.
kind of smaller, and it's still kind of up in the air. We wanted to do Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ in
First
almost
vision
a
stuff.
first vision like thing to be unveiled this year, but as you can
Obviously
tell,
hasn't
that has
happened.
not. So we'll see. There is for sure a window that will be going in there at some point. but
Okay.
It's something.
Anyway, that's how I know about, I mean, I know they have great stained glass windows in temples, but how I knew about your family business is because I saw all the mock-ups and the people who went to your factory or shop or whatever you call it, were just glowing.
You know the big Rome one?
Which we thought we were going to go
Yeah,
see.
Yeah, that's
So I've never actually seen the Rome Temple completed. I've only been there when it's like
In
concrete
stages,
and
yeah. Yeah, you know, the entire country of Italy is on lockdown as of this afternoon. The reality is, if this is like most influenza strains, April, May, they're all going to burn off. And what's going to be hard for me is we're going to be in Greece and Italy's going to be open.
next door.
If I can change it, I will. Just don't. Okay,
I haven't
well,
seen her
Queenie, she's sick today as well, I think. Isn't
Well,
she?
she'll be if she's not. She'll. And I've seen her on campus.
Okay.
Actually,
she's here.
3 times today.
Huh.
I think she's gonna have
She's
to
in
come
the class.
late most
Okay,
days.
she and Stina were the ones who come late. Did you know she was a triplet?
No?
I think I read that in the newsletter.
Scared of a fish.
In the
You know,
news,
she's
is that
scared
what
of
you're
fish, so this is
saying?
what we're gonna do.
Like
We're gonna have a
sharks, like-
fish dinner on the coast of Greece. And, well, I'm not gonna do that because I'm a Christian, but if we were bad people, we'd get fish and wave them. But we won't do that. I'm being videoed. You've gotta rein me in, Derek, that's your job.
This is,
You know-
only blackmail material, this is fun.
Stina is a Hebrew Bible person, and she comes at quarter after, which is part of the reason I'm vamping here. She owns more plants than she cares to admit. Do you know about that?
I think I do. Yeah.
She's getting married. She didn't write that down. I think she's getting married like in July.
Yeah.
After we get back from our
Next
trip.
month we'll be back.
And she is into sourdough. Now, there is a fellow, if you got the email I sent this afternoon, who was supposed to be going to, he's a business guy, like intense, like MBA student. And I'm being taped, so hello, Trevin. So he, I think, was going to Hong Kong and Japan. He was doing a business Asia study abroad, and they all got canceled. So he's going to join us. So for those of you who want to, I CC'd him on that last email. If you let him know what your kind of plane plans are, your flight plans, because he was wondering what people were doing. Okay? Yes, please.
How
Chloe.
many of you guys like scheduled flights already?
So I did like a month ago, but then Rome was, I haven't
Okay.
changed it yet, but I need to.
I'm in the same place where
Is
I have
every-
them, but I haven't changed the return flight from Rome back.
Okay.
Is everybody going out of Salt Lake?
I'm going out of Raleigh.
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 Do you have your flights planned yet?
No.
You know, it's not gonna be hard to get flights because there are plenty of seats. The only thing because I don't have mine yet either, because Kennedy Center's doing my plans. The only thing I'm worried about is airlines are reducing the number of flights because there's not the demand. Now, fortunately, London is a pretty major center, so getting there will be no problem. What we may need to do, and once we find out what the options are to fly home from Athens, if like, you know, we're planning to fly out Saturday morning, but if you can't get a flight till Sunday or Monday, then we'll just arrange to make sure they're hotel. So we'll cover you.
Okay.
So let's just kind of keep our fingers on the pulse of that. Okay.
We stretched that about.
You
another-
didn't change your return flight yet.
I haven't. I was hoping that,
Italy would magically heal.
yeah,
Jesus would come back and
wait,
do his
we
thing.
don't need to overreact, and then they.
And we
but,
reacted.
It got worse.
It got
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, while I'm still vamping for Addie and Stina to get here, let me just kind of show you some of the materials and lay out how we are doing things. The PowerPoints that I'm going to use for our history lectures, the first hour of our meetings, are actually online. So for instance, if you were going through that text, it's like, oh, this is a lot of names, this is a lot of events, what am I supposed to know? I told you all about the study guide, and it's somewhere in my stack of stuff here. So there will be a one-page study guide for each lecture. And so if you need to, particularly if you've got a lot of classes and you need to kind of speed read or skim this is what you're looking for. If you're having a hard time with the text, I have formatted these so they are 2 slides per page. And so I highlight all the stuff you need to know. Now I'm not going to hold you, as you'll see in a moment, to details of all phases of Mesopotamian history. What it is you're going to learn the names Acadia, Babylon, Assyria. Okay. Now for your ANES majors, particularly if you forgot everything you learned in 238, some of this will be reviewed. But I want those of you who are business and design and other majors to be familiar with the basic history so that when we're seeing these things in the museum, you have some sense of context for it. So that's the one thing I wanted to show you, is that the PowerPoints, and particularly for those of you in the video audience who are not going to blackmail me, I'm going to make it a private video, so you can't share with anyone. You can, because you may not be able to see all the slides behind me, you can download that. So there is that one, and there's also one for our cities. So we're going to talk about London in the last 15-20 minutes. For the next 2 weeks, so today's Mesopotamian readings, and I think I have them for Egypt as well, there's a download of the chapter or chapters that you can take straight from Learning Suite. And I stopped after that, so you either need to get your own copy of the book or find a classmate that you can share a book with. Maybe we have one in the library?
There's one in the library,
Okay,
down
so-
in the second floor.
Okay. The other
In the revision
thing
library?
that you don't need to do in great detail, but I had added some links. So for instance, there's the UK Culturegram. This is a little thing that the Department of State does that just says little things about the countries we're going to. Okay? And then in particular, whoops, this is what we didn't say we were going to do, but this is if you want to listen to Byzantine chant. But you don't, so we won't. Let me go back to Learning Suite. You see, I also have links for the museums and things, so you can actually go to the British Museum site. And the ever-popular Wikipedia is a good way of just kind of learning the basic history, when it was built, what its collections are. You will see when I pull up the London PowerPoint, I have a map of the museum. I'm going to tell you where we're going to be on what days, and just the basic collections are. Okay. All right. Well, this is what we're going to do until Stina gets here. We are going to start walking through this PowerPoint. So let's talk a little bit about this. Mesopotamia takes its name from the Greek, meaning between the rivers. Okay, it's the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in present-day Iraq. So I've circled for you in blue the region, and this is one of the 4 cradles of civilization. The other one's the Nile Valley. The other 2 we don't need to know: Nile Valley in Egypt, Indus Valley in Pakistan, and the Yellow River in China. So here are just a few things. Here you are, Stina. Here you are, Addie. Not Addie.
Brooke.
Brooke.
Yes.
Sorry, Brooke. Addie is on video. Okay, let's go ahead and do a practice quiz. And I'm saying practice on purpose so that you don't panic, those of you think this is new. Okay, I was going to make you take the quiz. Some of you are going to suffer and sweat and look really nervous, and then when it was over, I'm going to say, we're not going to count it. But I've given it away, so let's just see how you would do. Okay, so I'm going to ask you some questions. And these are the kind of things that would be on a reading quiz if we were going to count. Okay? So just take out a piece of paper, you can type it on your computer, however you want to do it. So if I were to ask you what cuneiform is, let's just go ahead. I'm going to ask you the question, you write down the best of your ability, and then we'll talk to them together when we're finished. So what is cuneiform? Okay, next, what is an obelisk? Once again, none of these reading quizzes are meant to be too tough. Sometimes when it's a name of a king, that might be hard. But just to make sure you know the basic kinds of things we're going to be looking at. Question 3, this one may be a little
Oh my
harder.
gosh, this is
Yes?
so fast.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, you're just still not puffing because you're in shape, but you've just come from a class, so catch you. Are you ready now, Stina?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What is
Light.
Ooh.
Okay, next question. What is significant about Acadia? Okay, it's a region of Mesopotamia. What's significant about Acadia? go the other direction. Rather than giving you a name, I'm going to describe someone and see if you can come up with the name. And spelling doesn't ever count. Okay? So one of the other kingdoms of Mesopotamia was Babylonia. In the old Babylonian period, there was a very famous Babylonian king, and he wrote a law code. We're actually going to look at this. The law code of blank. I think it's actually easier to go the other way, isn't it? If I give you the name and you just say what it is.
Sometimes.
Depends. But that one, yes.
The next important kingdom or empire is the Assyrian Empire. I'm going to do this two ways. First, I'm going to ask you, give me a capital of Assyria. There are actually two, but you only have to remember one of them. So give me a capital of Assyria. And then the next question is going to be, who is Sennacherib? So he's an Assyrian king or emperor. He did something pretty important. We're going to see descriptions or carvings about this in British Museum. Question 8, there's a second Babylonian empire. I'm going to call it the Neo-Babylonian Empire. But it was actually run by a different group of people. So these people were called the blank. Starts with a CH. It's not pronounced cha, it's pronounced ka. Cal. As far as I'm gonna go. I mean, it's not counting, right? And for the last question, I'm not worried about getting 10 of them because we're counting it. But for the last question, which I think is just number 9, give me an emperor or king of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. One's very famous, it's in the book of Daniel. He's also the one who destroyed Jerusalem. And actually, how I'll be prepared for future reading quizzes, I'll actually have 10 names or terms and hand it out, because the people who can't be in class, I'll need to send it to them. So from Amanda and Abby and others. Okay, so cuneiform is what?
A script.
Script.
It's the script, it's the writing system, okay? And we're going to look at some cuneiform script here in a minute. What's an obelisk?
Right, a stone pillar
Yeah, it's a
structure.
stone pillar that they carve on, whether it be text or, as we're going to see in a moment, relief carvings. What is Ur?
City.
Yeah, it's a Sumerian city, or for this, you can just say, well, it doesn't matter because it's not county, but it's a city in Mesopotamia. But it's one of the earliest cities from Sumer, or it's a Sumerian city. Okay, how did I phrase the next question?
What's significant about Acadia?
Oh yeah, what's significant about Acadia?
The first empire
Empire.
in
Yeah,
the
good. Yeah, it's the first one. So Sumeria was a region of city-states. You might have a region, but this conquered all of Mesopotamia and actually even went to Syria. So I think on your review sheet I said first real Mesopotamian empire. Okay, did I say who is the famous king of Babylon? Hammurabi. We're going to see the Hammurabi law code. What's significant about that is it reads a lot like the law of Moses, actually, an eye for an eye, tooth for tooth. So it shows that the Israelites were not in a cultural vacuum. Sometimes we assume that was just all unique, what we read in the Old Testament. Okay, so capital of Assyria? Nineveh is the one people remember because that's talked about in the Bible. Some of you are really into this. So this would be Paul and Stina, Hebrew Bible people. Ashur, which is where you get the name Assyria. There are other funky kings. Tiglath-Pileser and Shalmaneser, but I wanted to know, well, actually, that was the question, is getting a king, right?
No, it was,
No. It was
just what was the-
Sennacherib.
Oh, Sennacherib. Why is Sennacherib significant?
He destroyed the
Conquered the northern kingdom of Israel, or the final conquest. Tiglath-Pileser conquered some. He also besieged Jerusalem. And on this kind of a reading quiz, if you have one thing, that's fine. But what we're going to see is he besieged a fortress of Judah called Lachish. And in the British Museum, it's huge, these reliefs that show the Assyrian siege of this fortress and impaling people and cutting people's heads off. I mean, it's really quite brutal. We often describe the Assyrians as kind of the Nazis of the ancient world. I mean, they were just fierce, fierce people. Okay, who were the people that ran the Neo-Babylonian Empire?
The Chaldeans.
Chaldeans or Chaldeans, okay? And who is the famous king? Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, so if you're getting that much out of your reading, you're fine. If you weren't getting that much out of your reading, we didn't count the quiz this time, and just know what you're looking for. I will always take the reading quizzes just straight from the study guide, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and walk through the PowerPoint. So Mesopotamia, I guess that could have been a good question. What does Mesopotamia mean? But I'd already told you as we were stalling for Brooke and Stan to get here. The reason that the earliest civilizations were in river valleys, and I've often thought this was kind of interesting, I'd rather be on the road to Hana in Maui, or in Kauai, or the French Riviera or somewhere, where you don't have to work so hard, and fruit just grows on trees spontaneously, and that kind of thing. It's because it took effort. These river valleys that are surrounded by deserts are in what we call marginal lands. So without work, nothing grows there. But if you team together to build dikes and irrigation canals, etc., they can be very, very productive. And so if you lived in the French Riviera or in one of the Polynesian islands, you didn't need to have an established state structure because you could just live with your family in a hut and pound poi and eat fruit and make tapa cloth. Sorry, I'm thinking about Polynesia right now. But anyway, but to be in Egypt, you had to have a government and you needed to organize. Okay. Notice that I did put on the study guide any of these differences. Some of these things are things I do in history of Civ classes or did when I taught Civ, or in ANES 310, which is one of our history classes. Egypt and Mesopotamia are both river valleys, and they both required a lot of organization to become productive, but there are some things that are quite different. For instance, in Egypt, they grew primarily wheat, and in Mesopotamia, barley. Part of that was because Egypt, the Nile floods every year and kind of adds new silt and fertilizer. But the Mesopotamian area doesn't. The soil gets very saline, and barley can grow in more adverse conditions. Problem is, barley is not as nutritious for people as wheat is. So it's great for beer, but none of you would know that. Anyway, Mesopotamia is also constantly being invaded by all the mountain peoples to their north and their east. And so you have a succession of cultures, which is why we talked about Sumer, Akkadia, Babylonia, Assyria, Neo-Babylonia, or the New Babylonian Empire. Whereas, as we'll see on Monday, this might be kind of something to be thinking about as you're doing your reading for Monday, is Egypt is a much more static culture. Briefly invaded by the Assyrians and the Babylonians, but not really conquered until the Persians. And so they have a very long history. This is kind of amazing, and this will make more sense when we're talking about it on Monday, and I actually put a timeline up there. At the time the future Emperor Augustus conquered Egypt, this is 31 BC, the distance between, the temporal distance, the time between when the Great Pyramids were built in Augustus is longer than the period between Augustus and us. And that's amazing. The pyramids were thousands of years old when the Romans were there. So, I mean, it's an amazing culture. It's one of the reasons I added Munich to our list, because for those of us who don't know a lot about Egyptian history, it's not my thing. That museum in Munich is the best Egyptian museum I've ever seen. The way it's organized, as you're walking through, you're moving through time and cultures, and the way they do the exhibits is just really, really great. Now, here's an example of the cuneiform. Particularly the people looking on video can't see this. There's a slab